What if the reality you experience is not happening outside of you? What if it is being composed inside you? Not by your thoughts alone. Not by your beliefs alone. But by trillions of microscopic musicians hidden inside your body. At this very moment, while you are watching this video, an invisible performance is unfolding beneath your skin. A performance so vast and so complex that no orchestra on earth could ever compare to it. Trillions of cells communicating, listening, responding, adapting, changing. Each one receiving signals from an endless ocean of information. Each one deciding what matters and what does not. Most people believe reality is something fixed, something objective, something waiting outside to be discovered. But modern biology suggests something much stranger. The world you experience may not be the world that exists. It may only be the world your cells allow you to perceive. Think about that for a moment. Every color you see, every emotion you feel, every memory you relive, every fear that grips you, every hope that inspires you, all of it passes through biological gateways before it ever becomes part of your conscious experience. Those gateways are called receptors, and they may be among the most important structures in your entire existence. For most of human history, we have imagined ourselves as observers of reality, standing apart from the universe, looking outward, trying to understand what is there. But what if we have the relationship backwards? What if reality is not something you observe? What if reality is something you participate in creating? Not metaphorically, not spiritually, but biologically. Inside every cell of your body are molecular structures designed to receive information. These structures function like tiny antennas, constantly scanning, constantly interpreting, constantly selecting which signals deserve attention. Without them, there would be no sight, no sound, no touch, no emotion, no perception, no reality. Because reality is not what enters your body. Reality is what your body decides to process. Imagine standing in the middle of a crowded city. Thousands of sounds surround you. Cars, voices, wind, music, machines, footsteps. Your ears receive all of it. Yet your brain allows only a fraction of that information into conscious awareness. The rest disappears. Not because it does not exist, but because your system decided it was irrelevant. Now imagine that same principle operating not only with sounds, but with every aspect of existence. Opportunities, relationships, possibilities, threats, meaning, beauty, love, fear, all filtered through biological mechanisms hidden beneath awareness. Suddenly reality begins to look less like an objective landscape, and more like a personalized experience generated through selection. A selection process controlled by receptors. These receptors are astonishing. Some detect hormones. Some detect neurotransmitters. Some detect light. Some detect pressure. Some detect temperature. Some detect chemical messengers released by other cells. Each receptor acts like a gatekeeper, allowing specific information to enter while ignoring everything else. But here is where the story becomes truly fascinating. These gatekeepers are not fixed. They change. They adapt. They evolve according to your repeated experiences. The reality you experienced yesterday influences the receptors you have today. And the receptors you have today influence the reality you experience tomorrow. Which means your past is not merely remembered. It is biologically embedded, encoded into the very structures through which you perceive existence. Consider stress. Most people think of stress as an emotion, a temporary feeling, a reaction to circumstances. But stress is also a biological signal. When you experience fear or anxiety, your body releases chemical messengers. Among them is cortisol, a hormone designed to help you survive danger. For short periods, cortisol is incredibly useful. It sharpens focus, increases alertness, mobilizes energy. But something remarkable happens when stress becomes chronic. Your cells begin adapting to it. Receptors become tuned to expect it. Gradually, your biology starts treating stress not as an exception, but as the norm. Imagine listening to the same song every day for years. Eventually, it becomes familiar, comfortable, predictable, even if you no longer enjoy it. The same thing can happen inside your body. Cells become accustomed to particular emotional environments. Fear becomes familiar. Worry becomes familiar. Self-doubt becomes familiar. And because they are familiar, they begin shaping perception itself. You stop merely experiencing stress. You start seeing reality through stress. The world appears more dangerous, more threatening, more uncertain. Not necessarily because it is, but because your biological filters have changed. This is one of the most profound discoveries emerging from neuroscience and cellular biology. Perception is not passive. It is active. Your body is not simply recording reality. It is helping construct it. Every receptor functions like a musician playing a note in an immense symphony. Together, those notes create your experience of life. The cellular symphony. And perhaps the most astonishing realization of all is this: the music can change. Most people spend their lives assuming their perceptions are accurate reflections of the world. If they feel anxious, they assume danger exists. If they feel rejected, they assume rejection is real. If they feel unworthy, they assume they are unworthy. Yet biology suggests something different. The feeling may come first, the interpretation second, meaning that many of the realities we believe we are discovering may actually be realities we are generating. Not consciously, not intentionally, but biologically. Imagine wearing a pair of glasses with slightly tinted lenses. After a while, you stop noticing the tint. You assume the world itself possesses that color. You forget the filter exists. Now imagine emotional filters, psychological filters, cellular filters, operating every second of every day. You do not see them. You do not notice them. Yet they influence every experience you have, every conversation, every opportunity, every challenge, every relationship. What if some of the limitations you believe are external are actually internal frequencies being repeated through biological patterns? What if your receptors have learned a particular version of reality and continue reproducing it automatically? This possibility changes everything. Because if receptors can be trained by experience, then experience can also retrain receptors. Which means reality itself may be far more flexible than we imagine. There is a reason some people walk into a room and immediately notice problems, while others notice possibilities. Some notice rejection. Others notice connection. Some notice scarcity. Others notice abundance. The difference may not begin in the external world. The difference may begin inside the biological architecture of perception. Inside the hidden symphony being played by trillions of cells. Every thought, every emotion, every repeated experience becomes part of the rehearsal. And over time, the orchestra learns a particular song. The question is, who chose the song? Was it you? Was it your childhood? Your environment? Your fears? Your culture? Your habits? Or was it a combination of all of them? Because whatever composed the original melody, your cells have been performing it ever since. Many people spend years trying to change their lives by changing circumstances. A different job, a different relationship, a different city, a different goal. Yet the same emotional patterns often return. The same frustrations, the same fears, the same struggles. Why? Because the orchestra remained unchanged. The environment shifted, but the musicians kept playing the same music. And wherever that music goes, a familiar reality tends to follow. This realization can feel uncomfortable, but it is also deeply empowering. Because if biology helped create the reality you experience, then biology can help create a different one. Not overnight, not magically, but systematically, gradually, cell by cell, signal by signal, choice by choice. The cellular symphony is not a prison. It is an instrument. And like any instrument, it can be tuned. The first step is recognizing that it exists. The second step is learning how it works. And that is where our journey truly begins. Because once you understand how your biological receptors shape your experience, you begin seeing yourself differently. You stop viewing your body as a machine and start viewing it as a living bridge. A bridge between consciousness and matter, between possibility and experience, between the invisible world of information and the visible world you call reality. And in the next part of this journey, we will explore something even more astonishing: how your cells may be acting like observers, choosing which possibilities become your reality, and why the hidden conversation between biology and perception could be shaping every moment of your life. If receptors are the musicians of reality, then there is another question we must ask. Who is conducting them? Who decides which signals deserve attention? Who determines whether a possibility becomes an experience? To answer that question, we need to look deeper than biology. We need to look at the mysterious relationship between observation and reality itself. For centuries, scientists believed the universe existed independently of whoever was looking at it. Reality was assumed to be fixed, stable, objective, a giant machine operating according to predictable laws. Then something strange happened. The deeper scientists looked into the microscopic world, the less reality behaved like a machine. Particles seemed to exist in multiple possible states, until they were measured, until they were observed, until something forced a possibility to become an actual event. Suddenly, observation itself appeared to matter. And while your cells are not quantum particles, the metaphor is impossible to ignore. Every second your body receives millions of signals. Yet, only a tiny fraction become conscious experience. Your receptors are constantly making selections, constantly choosing, constantly filtering, constantly transforming possibility into perception. Imagine standing beneath a night sky. Above you are billions of stars. Yet your eyes register only a small portion of what is actually there. Not because the universe is empty, but because your biology is selective. Now imagine applying that same principle to your entire life. How many opportunities have passed unnoticed? How many possibilities existed but never became part of your experience? How many futures remained invisible simply because your biological filters were not tuned to detect them? This is where biology becomes deeply personal. Because receptors do not operate in isolation. They respond to repeated emotional environments, repeated thoughts, repeated reactions, repeated beliefs. The signals you experience most often become the signals your body expects. And what your body expects, it becomes increasingly skilled at finding. This is one of the hidden mechanisms behind self-reinforcing realities. A fearful mind does not merely feel fear. It becomes better at detecting threats. An angry mind does not merely feel anger. It becomes better at detecting reasons for anger. A hopeless mind does not merely experience hopelessness. It becomes better at finding evidence that hope is impossible. Over time, receptors become specialists, experts in identifying specific patterns. And the more frequently those patterns are activated, the stronger they become. Think about someone who constantly expects rejection. They enter a conversation already anticipating disapproval. Their body releases familiar chemicals. Their receptors respond to those chemicals. Their perception narrows. Neutral expressions appear hostile. Silence feels threatening. Ambiguity becomes criticism. The external world may not have changed, but their biological interpretation has. And because their interpretation changes, their behavior changes. And because their behavior changes, their outcomes often change. The prophecy fulfills itself, not through magic, but through biology. This is one reason why repeated emotional states become so powerful. They do not merely influence how you feel. They influence what you notice. And what you notice gradually becomes the reality you believe exists. But perhaps the most astonishing example of this process involves stress. Earlier we discussed cortisol, the hormone associated with survival. Most people think stress is unpleasant, something the body wants to avoid. Yet biology reveals something much stranger. Cells can become addicted to familiar chemistry, even chemistry that makes us suffer. Imagine waking up every morning worried, anxious, overwhelmed. After months or years, your cells begin expecting those chemicals. The receptors adapt. The nervous system adapts. The body becomes accustomed to a particular emotional environment. Eventually, peace feels unfamiliar. Stillness feels uncomfortable. Calmness feels suspicious. Not because those states are dangerous, but because they are different. The body starts craving what it knows, even if what it knows is suffering. This changes the way we understand personal transformation. Many people believe change is difficult because of willpower, because of discipline, because of motivation. Ding. But often change is difficult because biology is defending familiarity. Your cells are trying to maintain a chemical environment they have learned to expect. The old emotions have become part of the symphony, part of the rhythm, part of the music. And whenever you attempt to create a new song, the orchestra resists. At least initially. This explains why personal growth often feels uncomfortable. You are not simply changing thoughts. You are retraining receptors. You are teaching trillions of cells to recognize a different reality. And that process takes time. Imagine changing the station on an old radio. At first, the signal is weak. Static fills the air. The old station keeps bleeding through. But if you keep adjusting, eventually the new frequency becomes clear. The same process occurs inside your body. Every time you choose a new response instead of an automatic reaction, you send a different signal. Every time you interrupt an old emotional pattern, you send a different signal. Every time you refuse to feed fear with more fear, you send a different signal. At first, those signals may seem insignificant, but cells are always listening, always adapting, always learning. Gradually, new pathways emerge. New receptors gain importance. New emotional environments become familiar. And little by little, your perception begins to change. What once seemed impossible starts appearing achievable. What once seemed threatening starts appearing manageable. What once seemed invisible starts appearing obvious. The world itself may not have changed, yet your experience of it transforms dramatically. This is why two people can live through the same event and experience completely different realities. One sees disaster. The other sees opportunity. One sees failure. The other sees feedback. One sees an ending. The other sees a beginning. The difference often lies not in the event itself, but in the biological filters through which it is interpreted. Your receptors are not simply receiving reality. They are helping define it. And once you understand that, a profound question emerges. If your cells can learn fear, can they learn courage? If your cells can learn scarcity, can they learn abundance? If your cells can learn hopelessness, can they learn possibility? The answer appears to be yes. Because the human body possesses an extraordinary ability known as plasticity. Plasticity means change is built into the system. Your brain can change. Your nervous system can change. Your hormonal patterns can change. Your receptors can change. Nothing about your current state is as permanent as it feels. The symphony can always be rewritten. The challenge is that most people attempt to change outcomes without changing signals. They want a different reality while continuing to broadcast the same emotional frequencies. The orchestra keeps receiving identical instructions, so it keeps performing the same music. But when the signals change consistently, the music changes. And when the music changes, reality begins responding differently. Not because the universe suddenly became kinder, but because your biological filters became capable of detecting possibilities that were always present. Imagine walking through a forest carrying a flashlight. The flashlight determines what you see. Whatever falls inside the beam becomes your reality. Everything else remains hidden. Your receptors function in a similar way. They illuminate specific aspects of existence and leave countless others in darkness. The question is not whether possibilities exist. The question is whether your biology is capable of perceiving them. Because opportunities cannot transform your life if your receptors never recognize them. Love cannot enter your awareness if your filters are trained only for rejection. Peace cannot become familiar if your system remains addicted to conflict. Abundance cannot become visible if scarcity dominates perception. This realization changes the conversation completely. Personal transformation is no longer merely psychological. It becomes biological. It becomes cellular. It becomes a process of teaching the body to recognize a different version of reality. And that brings us to the most important discovery of all. If the symphony has been programmed through repetition, then repetition can also rewrite it. The same mechanism that created old patterns can create new ones. The same biology that reinforced fear can reinforce confidence. The same receptors that became experts in suffering can become experts in possibility. The orchestra is listening. The musicians are waiting. And in the final part of this journey, we will explore how to consciously direct this cellular symphony. How to retrain the biological filters shaping your experience. And how small daily choices can transform the hidden music that ultimately becomes your reality. If you have followed this journey from the beginning, then one truth should now be becoming impossible to ignore. Your reality is not simply happening to you. It is being interpreted by you, filtered by you, translated by you, and most importantly, it is being shaped by biological systems that are constantly adapting to the signals you provide. This realization changes everything, because it means that the story of your life is not fixed. The orchestra is still playing. The music is still being written. And at any moment a new melody can begin. Most people spend years trying to change what appears on the outside. They chase new circumstances, new environments, new relationships, new achievements, believing that once the external world changes, their internal experience will finally change with it. But the cellular symphony teaches a different lesson. The outer world often follows the inner music, not the other way around. Because every day your cells are asking a silent question. What kind of reality should we prepare for? And your repeated emotions answer that question. Your repeated thoughts answer that question. Your repeated reactions answer that question. Again and again. Day after day. Year after year. The body listens. The receptors adapt. And perception evolves accordingly. This is why awareness is so powerful. Awareness interrupts automation. Awareness creates space between stimulus and response. Awareness allows you to observe the music instead of unconsciously becoming it. Imagine standing beside a river. For years the water has flowed in the same direction. The current is strong. The path is deep. The movement feels inevitable. That river is your conditioning. Your habits. Your emotional patterns. Your biological programming. Most people believe they must fight the river. But transformation does not begin with force. It begins with observation. Because the moment you become aware of the current, you stop being completely controlled by it. You begin seeing where it flows. You begin noticing what feeds it. And eventually, you discover where it can be redirected. This is the first step in cellular transformation. Observation. Not judgment. Not resistance. Not self-criticism. Observation. When anxiety appears, observe it. When fear appears, observe it. When anger appears, observe it. When doubt appears, observe it. The goal is not to suppress these experiences. The goal is to become conscious of them. Because unconscious patterns control us. Conscious patterns can be transformed. Every time you observe an automatic emotional reaction without immediately feeding it, something remarkable happens. You interrupt the old signal. The orchestra hesitates. The familiar music pauses. For a brief moment, a new possibility emerges. This moment may seem insignificant, but biologically it is profound. Because every interruption weakens the old pathway, and every new response strengthens a new one. This is how the brain changes. This is how perception changes. This is how reality begins changing. Not through dramatic breakthroughs, but through countless small moments of conscious choice. Imagine someone who has spent years expecting rejection. Every conversation triggers anxiety. Every silence feels threatening. Every delay feels personal. Now imagine that person choosing a different response. Not once, but repeatedly. Instead of assuming rejection, they remain curious. Instead of assuming danger, they remain open. Instead of reinforcing the old story, they create space for a new one. At first, nothing seems different. The external world appears unchanged. Yet beneath the surface, a biological revolution has begun. The receptors are learning. The nervous system is adapting. The orchestra is receiving new instructions. Eventually, a threshold is crossed. What once felt natural begins feeling unfamiliar. What once felt impossible begins feeling normal. The music changes. And with it, reality changes. This is why repetition matters. Cells learn through repetition. Neurons learn through repetition. Perception learns through repetition. The question is not what you think once. The question is what you repeatedly signal. Every day your body is listening to your emotional broadcasts. Every day your receptors are taking notes. Every day your biology is asking, should we strengthen this pathway? Or build a different one? Most people underestimate the power of small consistent shifts. A single moment of gratitude may seem insignificant. A single moment of presence may seem insignificant. A single moment of compassion may seem insignificant. But cells do not measure moments the way we do. They measure patterns. And patterns create biology. Biology creates perception. Perception creates experience. Experience reinforces belief. And belief influences reality. The cycle continues, unless consciousness intervenes. This is where the true power of intention enters the story. Intention is not wishful thinking. It is not pretending. It is not denying difficulty. Intention is the deliberate selection of a signal. A conscious choice about which reality you want your biology to prepare for. Every time you focus on possibility instead of limitation, you send a signal. Every time you choose curiosity instead of fear, you send a signal. Every time you remain present instead of becoming trapped in old emotional loops, you send a signal. The orchestra listens. The receptors adapt. The symphony evolves. And perhaps this explains something many people have experienced but struggled to understand. Have you ever noticed how certain periods of your life seem to attract similar events? Similar people, similar outcomes, as if reality itself is echoing an invisible pattern. Perhaps what you are seeing is not coincidence. Perhaps you are witnessing the feedback loop between biology and perception. A loop so subtle that it feels invisible, yet so powerful that it shapes entire lives. When the internal music changes, different opportunities become visible. Different choices become possible. Different actions become natural. And slowly, a different future emerges. Not because fate changed, but because perception changed. Not because the world transformed overnight, but because the filters through which you experienced it transformed. The cellular symphony teaches us something both humbling and empowering. You are not completely in control of reality, but neither are you powerless within it. You are participating in an ongoing conversation. A conversation between consciousness and biology, between thought and chemistry, between possibility and perception. Every heartbeat is part of that conversation. Every emotion is part of that conversation. Every choice is part of that conversation. And the most beautiful part is this: the conversation never ends. No matter how long a pattern has existed, it can change. No matter how deeply a belief has been embedded, it can change. No matter how familiar a limitation has become, it can change. Because life itself is built upon adaptation. Your cells adapt. Your brain adapts. Your body adapts. And your reality adapts with them. So perhaps the question is no longer, what kind of world am I living in? Perhaps the deeper question is, what kind of signals am I teaching my biology to recognize? What emotional environments am I rehearsing every day? What frequencies am I feeding? What music am I asking my orchestra to perform? Because whether you realize it or not, the performance has already begun. The musicians are already playing. The receptors are already listening. The symphony is already unfolding. And every moment of awareness gives you an opportunity to guide it, to refine it, to transform it, to become not merely a listener, but a conductor, a conscious participant in the creation of your experience. The cellular symphony is not a theory about distant science. It is happening inside you right now, within every cell, within every signal, within every breath. An invisible orchestra is translating possibility into experience, turning information into perception, turning perception into reality. And perhaps the greatest discovery of all is that the conductor has been there from the beginning, waiting patiently, quietly, for the moment you finally realize that the baton is already in your hands. So the next time you feel trapped inside an old emotion, remember this. Your cells are listening. The next time you find yourself repeating an old story, remember this. Your cells are listening. The next time you choose awareness instead of automation, possibility instead of limitation, presence instead of fear, remember this. Your cells are listening. And with every new signal, a new reality begins to emerge. One note, one choice, one moment of awareness at a time. The orchestra is waiting. The music is changing. The question is, what reality will you teach your cells to create next? And when you answer that question, the symphony of your future begins its first note today.